Hello! I just want to show you this app that I built that can generate prime numbers just by checking by the visibility. So we could, for example, just click 100 and then click on calculate. And then if we scroll down, then we see that we get a lot of prime numbers right here. And we could click on one of these, but as you see, nothing will come up. And it's because there is an error with the HTTP request, because the website is made in HTTPS, and the API that I'm using, the numbers API, only supports HTTP, and so there's a mixed content error. But the easiest solution is probably just to clone the project just locally on your computer, and then launch it from there. And then now if we do the same thing again, but this time we click on a number, then you now see that the text comes up. And so you get the number right here, and this is also a clickable link, so you can click the link right here, and you will get to go to number.academy, and you will see that it just adds to the URL 5, and you will get all interesting information about 5, some conversions, history, some random facts. And if we go back here, you will get 2 interesting facts about the number, or what is making it special, or like does it have any special property, like that it's the number of platonic solids, it's the number of appendages on most starfish. And we can then go back and we could select a different number, for example 31, and there we get some other interesting facts. So we could go back, and we could also like generate prime numbers over an interval. So say we want to like prime numbers only between 100 and 200, and now you will see that it starts at 100 and goes all the way up to 200. So it basically prints out every prime number, but that is more than 100 but less than 200. And we can also click on these. Now we could it only supports an interval up between 10,000, because otherwise it becomes too much to handle on the HTML side, because each number is a separate HTML tag. And yeah, I could just click and you'll see that it says that the max interval has been reached. Otherwise it becomes too much, but I could input an interval, for example 20,000 to 30,000, and let's see, it takes a bit while now, but now it says that prime numbers are generated, so I could just scroll down and I will get all the prime numbers between 20,000 and 30,000. And you can see that there's this very nice animation that took me a while, but that I'm really fond of. Then when you scroll down, you can see that the next row kind of fades in, and if you were to scroll up, then you could see that the previous rows starts to fade in also, so they kind of fade out and fade in, which was an effect that I really liked. I kind of imagined the vault of prime numbers when I did this. And you can also see like how the background is dynamically changing in colors. We can select a number here, and here it comes up. And most numbers above a few thousand, 10,000 will just, there aren't that many interesting facts. Like maybe some number will have some interesting, but most will probably just say boring number or unremarkable number. And you can input pretty large intervals, because the JavaScript itself is really not that limited. So I could do, for example, so I could do 690,000 to 700,000. And here we get all the prime numbers between these 2 numbers. And that's pretty much the most of it. And as you can see, most of them are unremarkable or uninteresting. So how did I make this app? Well, the HTML is fairly simple. We have an input box where we take in the user input, and then we have the prime numbers, where what we basically do is that we make a fetch call to the numbers API, and then we add a new p tag to the div which contains all the prime numbers, and it sets it and it gives it a class of prime number. Now the reason why I'm giving it its own, that I'm giving each number its own tag, is so that I can apply animations to it, because it's, and so that you can click on it, because I could like just have a long text file which would vary, which would increase the performance by a lot. However, I want to be able to click on the numbers, because it's not that fun just to generate a list of prime numbers. I want to be able to click on them and get that interesting information about, like, if they're the number of platonic solids, or if it's a perfect number or something like that. And so the main algorithm to check if it's a prime number is actually fairly simple. As you can see, it just checks if it's divisible by every number or every integer up to the square root of that number. And if it's not divisible by any number, then it just says that the number is prime. And then I also made a custom-made prime number function, which was kind of like, you know, this algorithm right here. I just Googled, and it was very simple. But before that, I thought for myself, like, how could I come up with prime numbers? And my way, or the way I thought of it, was basically to remove the multiples. And so if you, for example, inputted an interval, like say between 10 and 100, then what it did was that it created a list which contained every whole integer between 10 and 100, and then it went through all the numbers up to 100, starting from 1 or from 2, and then it basically removed all the multiples of all those numbers from the list. So it would start off with 2, and then the multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 8, no, sorry, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, basically every even number. And so it would remove every even number from the list of multiples, and then it would go through 3, so that's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and then it would remove every multiple of 3, every multiple of 4, and then it would do this for every number up to 100, and then the numbers left would then obviously be the primes. And so that was a kind of my own algorithm. Now it doesn't really have any more performance than the other algorithm. I mean, like, the thing that is good about this one, and like this algorithm is also like kind of inefficient in a way. Although the thing that wasn't, although it probably didn't matter that much, because the thing that was really bottlenecking everything was the HTML, which probably could have easily been fixed just by adding multiple pages. So the fact that this algorithm was kind of inefficient didn't really play that big of a role. But what makes this algorithm a bit more efficient is that we basically check the divisibility for every number. So we do like the same operations a lot of times. Like we could use memorization and to remember or previous values, whilst this one has it has constant runtime, because the time complexity is constant. It's just the upper interval that you've entered, because that's the number of calculations that it has to do. If you inputted 200 to 500, then it has to do 500 computations or operations. And there you can see that I handle each click for every number that had a class of prime number. And here is the change that I did, and then scrolling to view this other box which would have all the interesting information. And this was kind of the whole thing that I did, because it was kind of tricky to get the fade in right. So I had this function which checked if the number was visible or within the viewport, and if it was, whenever you scroll, then it would add the class of show, or otherwise it would remove the class of show. And then the class of show, well, it would basically just add in the fade in animation to the prime number. There's some more CSS here. I just tried to use some fun colors. Yeah, and that I think is most of it. So yeah, pretty cool. Like some prime numbers.